episode number 18. You are listening to the More Than a Lawyer podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help lawyers and mums to thrive in their careers and motherhood. I share tips, strategies, and inspirational conversation with awesome women to help you reduce the struggle in your juggle. Hello and welcome to the show. I have missed you all. I did not put out an episode last week because I was in the middle of feeling ill and couldn't get myself together to finalise the show. I am pregnant with baby number 2. Whoop whoop, very exciting. So I have promised myself that while I am growing a human, I will listen to my body and rest when I need to. And you can probably hear from my voice that I am not 100%. I am still bunged up and have not fully got over my cold, but I do feel so much better than I did before. So that's why you are hearing from me today. Now, on to today's show. I'm talking to a lovely lady called Robin Kergerise about what it means to jobcraft, to create a role that works for you in whatever stage of life that you're in. We can often feel that we don't have choices when it comes to our current positions at work, and it can be challenging to adapt when life changes, but your role isn't necessarily changing to fit that change in life. But there are ways that you can be intentional about the job that you do and the way that you do it so that it is aligned with your values. And that is what Robin and I are going to talk about in our conversation. It's a really good conversation to listen to as you prepare for 2017. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. Hi Robin, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so excited to have you on. It would be great if you could introduce yourself to our audience so they can get to know you a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Janine, for having me, and I am very excited to be here. So a little bit about me. So let's see. I am a mom, a wife, and also a business owner. So my husband and I have actually been married for 9 years, and we have 2 little girls. They are currently 6 and 3. And earlier this year is when I launched my own business for life and career coaching. But my background professionally is with human resources consulting. So I have about 8+ years of consulting, and that's been a big part of my story from a career perspective, and then kids changing how that fits into life.
Yeah. Okay, so I would love to dive in and hear more about that last bit that you just said. So about career and how things change when you had kids, because a lot of our listeners are lawyers or other professionals who are either transitioning into motherhood or they have recently. And so that figuring out that balance between work and family life is definitely at the forefront of their minds. So it would be great to hear more about your kind of transition and your experience around that.
Yes. Well, I would say it's definitely been an ongoing process. Mm-hmm. So something for all of your listeners to bear in mind that it will be an ongoing process. But for me, when I first was pregnant with my older daughter, just entering motherhood, I had always been super career minded and hadn't even really crossed my mind not to go back to work after having her. So figuring out, trying to transition and flip the switch, right back into career mode was very difficult, going from sleepless nights and then trying to, kind of be on for client meetings, traveling. So definitely hit some challenges. And, but was still like trudging forward that I wanted to keep working. I didn't want to, stay at home at the time. Well, then you fast forward 3 years from that point when my second daughter came along. my husband says that like she totally changed me because
Oh,
when she came along, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this anymore. I'm not sure that I want to, I definitely don't want to work at this pace. And then I don't know, like kind of an identity crisis of sorts, going, well, maybe I'll stay home. Maybe I'll take a break. And so really wrestled with it, wrestled with what was right for me, and did a part-time arrangement. And I think there are probably some parallels from, with the consulting world and being an attorney. I know they're, different, but it was within a firm where basically you could go into a partner track.
okay.
And so I was, at that highest level before becoming a partner. And I had to do a lot of soul searching because up until that point, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a partner. And, I know what I need to do and that's what I want to do. And this, once I get there, this will be great for our family. And it just, with my baby coming along, my priorities shifted and I mean, I would have to have a separate conversation. Like there was a lot of soul searching with how much of my identity, was a part of my career, like how all of those things were intertwined.
Yeah.
But a lot of praying about it and being at peace with where I was at, and that I didn't need to become a partner in that firm in order to have succeeded.
Yeah.
So that to be for me to be successful. So yeah, about a year ago, I actually switched completely to a project-based status. So that meant, significantly reduced hours, much less travel, much more autonomy and just control over my schedule. So that has been the right balance for us. Now that my daughter is in first grade, so that's been the last year, I've been able to do things like put her on the bus, pick her up from the bus, help her with homework. Like that was where I wanted to be. Like I wanted to be present for those things.
Yeah.
So, but it's an ongoing process because I think, you're never, at least from my experience, never just like fully in like this perfect state of balance.
Yes. I think
but
balance is
yeah,
something that everybody's striving towards, and it's not really realistic. There's always going to be shifting priorities, but having everything equally balanced it's not going to happen.
yeah,
But and I love the fact that you talked about that identity piece, because I think so many people could probably identify with that, but maybe don't always recognize how much their identity is wrapped up with their career. So then when you become a mother and things kind of change internally for you, it's hard to say, I'm going to step away from being a lawyer or a consultant or whatever it is you've defined yourself as. Because then it feels like, well, then who am I? If I'm not that
yeah,
role, or that I don't have that title, then who am I? But
yeah,
actually, the work that we do is the work that we do, and it's not who we are. And so I love it when I see people kind of come to that realization, and then it opens up a whole world of possibilities and takes away a lot of the kind of anxiety around just making a decision that is right for them at that stage of
hmm
their journey.
yeah, yeah. It's actually incredibly freeing,
Yeah.
to then look at things from that perspective because you're a lot of pressure that has been, you've been putting on yourself is kind of taken off, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is me, and yes, I want to use my skills, my talents, contribute those things to the world, but I've sort of taken that and removed it from, I have to have these things in order to be whole,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
So,
it is very much us putting pressure on ourselves a lot of the time. It's not necessarily external pressure, it's our own definitions of success. And so I do
mhm.
think it's important to realize that as you progress in life and you become a mother and you become a wife and different things and roles come up in your life, your priorities change, and your values shift too. So it's giving ourselves that space to just say it's okay to reassess and
Yes.
reevaluate. And yes, before I wanted to be a partner, but now I don't want to be a partner, and it's okay.
Right.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I definitely can relate to that. Um, so in terms of your girls, like how have you seen how they have benefited from you being around more? Because my son's quite young, but I can
Hmm.
imagine when he's kind of 6 or like 3
Hmm.
years old, I might be able to see more how me being around is affecting him or not being around
Hmm.
is affecting him. So I'll be interested to just hear about how that looks for you.
Yeah. Um, and I do think everybody's situation is different, what's right for them. Um, but I'll tell a quick story. I had about, well, goodness, I guess it's been almost a year and a half ago now, while my daughter, before she went off to kindergarten, I had been waiting on this parent teacher conference. And I was in that like scurry, I've got to get all this stuff done mode. And was at a coffee shop, for like an increment of time before that meeting started. And I looked over and I saw a dad and daughter just together at a coffee shop. They weren't hurried, they were just relaxing, talking to each other. I was like, wow, I want that. Like, I don't even know what that is, but I just want that feeling of being present and connected and not rushed. So
Mm,
that was like a little, I guess, light bulb moment of just a desire, and then I connected that to the fact that, well, my daughter was going to be going to kindergarten, and the schedule that I had would not allow for me to do that. I would be traveling, my schedule, there's no way I would be able to just have like this free time. So after making that change, kind of fast forward through kindergarten, you asked me how that's made a difference. And for me, being there has been huge. Like, I've been able to, we've had, we walk from my house down to the bus stop. It's about a 5-minute walk, but it's every morning having a
hmm
5 minute, it's even more than that, but easily a 5-minute conversation walking down, that we're starting the day. We're having these amazing conversations. It's immediately off the bus. I can tell what kind of day it's been for
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
And she'll tell me, so and so said this to me, or she's happy and excited about, something that happened that day, which I don't know if I would get that, if I wasn't there right away, because then
yeah,
she kind of moves on and it's not really on her mind anymore. So I think I've been able to be more in her world and just
yeah.
aware of things on a daily basis. But at the same time, when I have had conflicts where she's needed to go to after school care,
hmm
she's super excited about that. She's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can't wait. I'm so happy that I get to go see my friends there." Um, so I would say, just to your listening audience, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong, in
Yeah.
terms of how it affects our children. Um, they just love the time that we do get with them.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's the key thing. It's not necessarily saying, well, you have to work part
yeah.
time so you can be present, but it's just acknowledging that the time that you do spend, making sure that it's quality time, so that if you are working full time and you only have, a few minutes every day with your kids, making that time count and not be thinking about the meeting you have to get to or the work that you have to do, but actually spending that time when you're there, I think
Yes.
is definitely a way to make you feel like you're making the most of both worlds
Yes.
um,
Yes.
at the same
Exactly.
time.
And for me, it was, it's made a huge difference to essentially reduce my hours in half. I mean, I essentially cut my hours in half. So by default, like by that, was able to, we've had so much more margin in our
hmm
mornings. I've been able to have time instead of, we're rushing constantly. We can say, yeah, let's play a game for 10 minutes before we leave and walk to the bus stop, which
Yeah.
would have sounded crazy, a little bit over a year ago. I'd be like, we don't have time for this. Like, we got to go. We're already late. So having margin, it's given us opportunity to not be rushed and just kind of have those special moments.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to touch on with you is around kind of this designing the life that you want in a way in terms of your work life, because you reducing your hours has meant that you can make time for the things that you're prioritizing and you
Yes.
that are important to you now. And I think for a lot of people going back to work or seeking employment after becoming a mum, it might seem as though the options aren't really open to them, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult to find a role that's going to fit the bill in terms of the flexibility that they want. But we talked a lot before about job crafting and how
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of make the role that you're in work for you. So could you
Mm-hmm.
talk a bit about that as a concept? Because I'm sure many of my listeners haven't heard about job crafting. And when I first heard of it, I was like, this is amazing. So I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, um, in terms of the concept, there, I've kind of adopted my own version and approach to it,
Hmm.
based on my own experiences. But the premise is really that we all actually have a lot more control over our job and our work situation than we might think. And so what it's doing is it's essentially saying, it's breaking down, look at your responsibilities, look how your job is currently designed and set up, and then start to evaluate, how do those different aspects line up with your skills, your talents, what you actually enjoy doing.
Hmm.
And so then you can start to identify opportunities to change. So, what kinds of things would you like to reduce? Those things that you don't really enjoy, aren't really using your skills. What can you do to make changes in that regard? Or if there's not an area that you really want to showcase or that you want to develop, how can you start to identify those opportunities?
Hmm.
And then, once you kind of have that picture of where are you, what would you like it to be? What's that ideal? Then who can help you, and what kinds of resources do you need to then make that a reality? So
Okay.
that's kind of the short version of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So,
So it's just being aware, I guess,
mhm,
of your surroundings and your role and
mhm.
what you actually bring to it and what you enjoy doing.
Yes. I'd say I've added also a component of identifying your mission and your vision and your values.
Yeah.
What's important to you so that you can then look at your current job relative to that. Like that's definitely an important thing if you're, really misaligned in what you're doing every single day and that's in conflict with what's important to you.
Yeah.
Like that's a more fundamental change than the signal that something is not working.
Yeah, and that's something that I talk to people and clients about all the time, because if you're not if you're not finding what your values are and you're just plodding along and then you're continuing to just do the same thing, you're not going to be fulfilled, and you are going to be in that space where you're just like, I hate what I do and I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
And so it's just figuring out, how do I make sure that everything's aligned so that life isn't so much in compartments where it's like, this is my work life and I just have to do work and then I come home and enjoy my family life. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
how can we get it so that you're not spending most of your time, which you're spending at work, in a state of like, I hate this and I don't want to be here.
No, exactly, exactly. So, yeah, my philosophy is definitely that you can do what you love, as your career and as your work. Yeah, certainly there's going to be parts of any job that aren't you may not be in love with, but it definitely, yeah, pursue more of what lights you up, what you feel like where your gifts can be best used.
Yeah, that is very good advice. So, are there any, in terms of your transition now, moving from kind of having that reduced working time to now starting your own business, have you found that transition challenging, or are there any like specific areas where you kind of learnt more
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, or been able to see things differently now that you're venturing into a whole new space?
Yeah, those are great questions. again, it's been a process, which I'm more and more learning to embrace the process and not rush the process. Um, but yes, so earlier this year, I started my own business, and it was really based on being able to make that schedule and arrangement change for myself, and really feeling passionate about other moms being able to do that type of thing also. I mean, that's really where the whole, draw and drive for the business came from. So what I've learned a lot in the last year, some things the hard way, most things the hard way.
Yeah.
But I've definitely, it's challenging, and it's difficult to, and you know this, juggling, having multiple careers and those type of responsibilities. So, but what I have done, and, the best thing I've done is making investments in myself in terms of, building a business, making sure that the precious time that I can spend on it is being spent in the best way.
Yeah.
So that I'm, instead of just struggling and spinning my wheels over something, I'm actually have a very clear focus, and it's very intentional. And fortunately, I've been able to really, segment my schedule to where I can be, really fully in this one position for a set period of time, and then switch into my business. So, but yeah, I've learned all kinds of things about websites and technology and, marketing, all kinds of things, which is great. I love the learning and the growth behind it. But it's definitely challenging. But I would say, just encouraging to your listeners, that if you have something in your heart that you want, that is just, it won't go away, pursue it, and even if it's a process to kind of figure out, how is it going to work, and is this actually a business? Like, can this really be possible? Like, don't push those to the side, but really nurture that and pursue it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely an advocate for a portfolio career because I
Yeah.
think often we can kind of get on the one track, especially if you're professional and you just think, well, this is what I do. But often you have kind of creative side of you that you want to explore, or you get ideas, and something about becoming a mum kind of gives you some extra superpowers where you think, I could try
Yeah.
this, I could so do this, I made a human, I pushed out a human, I can totally do this new thing. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's great for people to kind of explore and don't necessarily keep themselves in a box and just think, I can only do this. Like, there are ways
Yeah.
to juggle multiple things and learn new things and explore and just grow.
I feel like, and this is maybe sounds silly, but I feel like as moms, like, sometimes I think about Madonna,
Hmm.
like, and I feel like she's reinvented herself
So
like
many
so many
times.
different times, and it's like, we can do that.
Yeah,
I
why
mean, we
not?
don't may not do it to the same extreme or, style, but I think we do. I think we have to give ourselves permission and grace to grow and to
Yeah.
kind of see what that next, stage or experience is going to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I so agree. So are there any kind of tips? So you've been through quite a journey and transitions,
Mhm.
through different transitions. So if there's someone listening who's like, okay, I love what she's talking about, and but I don't even know where to start, with trying to figure out changing my work schedule or shifting my focus in terms of my career. Are there any tips that you would give in terms of a good starting place?
Mhm. Um, okay.
I've
Um,
put you on the spot.
I know. No, no, no. I'm just thinking. I mean, because there's so many things I've personally researched in the
Yeah.
last time, so I'm trying to think of, pointing people to the best starting point. So I would say, getting connected with like-minded people,
Hmm.
people that, have some similar desires, or that you've seen, pursue a path that you're interested in, because, anyone that has, even taken or a few steps ahead of you will be helpful in both, encouraging you that it's possible, and then helping to tell you, give you advice, on what steps to take. And then let's see. I mean, I would say really think about your expectations, and what are you expecting of yourself in terms of going through, like if you're pursuing a different path, just think, is that something that, what can you give to it at that, whatever point you're in? Is it something that you can do on the part-time, and so you need to spread your timeline out? Or are you in a place where you really could take a complete break, from whatever path you've been on and then go full swing into something else? Or take a pause altogether and not put pressure on yourself. So I think there's so much when it comes to expectations and what you're put on yourself as expectations.
Yeah, that is definitely definitely good advice. I think expectations is a huge thing that we need to address.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you is about kind of inspiration. So I love to draw inspiration from quotes from
Mm-hmm.
people. So are there any kind of quotes that you live by, or that stick in your mind, or that you like to share and encourage people with?
Mm-hmm. I do love quotes. I love quotes. I also, I have to say, especially in the last several months, I have been reading scripture, and that has given me just so much strength and peace and perspective. And that's been a practice that in the last several months, each morning I will read some scripture and then journal about it. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, that's like my life verse. So trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not into your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.
That is so cozy. That scripture is inscribed on the inside of my wedding band.
Is it?
Yes, I love
it. And it's so amazing because that verse has really been one I've come back to my whole life, but it just keeps having more and more depth to it. Like every part of life that I get into, because I'm like, oh, okay, here I am again, like trust, and so definitely scripture. And then as far as a quote, there is a quote that I really love, which is F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it goes, I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you are not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. And I love that one because to me that kind of comes back to the point of, if you have something in your heart, it's never too late. It's never too late to pursue that. And back to the, you can reinvent yourself. I think we often spend too much time thinking about the past and what we could have done, and there's still so much opportunity ahead. So that's why I love that quote.
Awesome. Oh, it's been so good chatting to you. I've learned so much, and I'm sure my audience has learned so much. So if people wanted to learn more about you, where would be a good place for them to check you out?
Sure. So I am trying to focus in terms of how I'm spending time on social media. Lately, because there's so much out there. So right now I am primarily on Instagram. That's the main place on social media. And you can find me at She Works Heartily. Is the name on Instagram. And then my website is also sheworksheartily.com.
Okay, awesome. I will put the links to those in the show notes so that people can check you out. But it has been so great catching up with you and having you on the show. So thank you so much for your time. And I encourage people to definitely check you out so they can learn more about you, because you're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That conversation with Robin was so insightful. It was really good to hear about her journey from her corporate career and the way she felt about her career even after her first child, and then how things changed once she became a mother to her second child. And I'm sure that it has got you thinking about small changes that you can make that could have a huge impact on your day to day. It is all about being intentional, it's about thinking outside of the box and really considering what is important to you, and then working out how you adapt your role or opportunities to suit that. So if you enjoyed the conversation and you want to connect with Robin and find out more about her, then you can head over to the show notes at lightboxcoaching.com/episode 18, and I will share the link to her website and her social media handles also. Um, so that's all from me. I do not want to spend too much time talking to you with this bunged up nose that I have, but I will definitely look forward to connecting with you in the next episode. And until then, I encourage you to look after yourself and look after your family and really enjoy the holidays as we approach Christmas next week. I hope that you're using it as a time to reflect on the reason for the season and to connect with family members. So I will be speaking to you soon. The More Than a Lawyer podcast features music from Ben Sound.